What do people typically not understand about filtration? When you tell people to use ammonia to cycle the tank, what exactly do you mean?
Would you do this with nothing but water in the tank?
Is it okay if there's cleanup crew in there already? I get a lot of questions about pre-cycling media that you can use to cycle a tank. Whether you have pre-cycled media or you have live rock or whatever you have, what is your recommendation about how much to use to keep it cycled? You don't just cycle it and then let it sit because it has to continue to be fed.
Yes.
But if you're in a position where you've made the mistake of cycling in a way that some reefer told you was okay, you're not in a position to use ammonia. What do you suggest then? Dylan also asked, in a reef tank, people use nanobubbles to scrub clean reef aquariums. Is it safe to do this with seahorses? How macroalgae can be used, or an algae scrubber, or a refugium, how that can be used, and how that fits into the filtration scheme. For those of us in the room that are keeping bare bottom tanks, how does that affect? I'm just talking strictly biological filtration at this point.
When you're saying 25 to 30 gallons per pair, does that include the sump or is it just in the tank?
What would you think would happen in a tank if you just let a cubomyces in there just rot away every single day?
Welcome to Wine Wednesday. Cheers. This week, actually, we wanted to concentrate on filtration.
Unfortunately, many people don't understand what is needed in terms of filtration in a seahorse tank. And there's really two types of filtration. The first type, of course, is biological. And the second type that I'm going to be focusing on is mechanical. Biological filtration, most folks understand, is the aquarium nitrogen cycle. Waste is produced, ammonia is created, and the nitrogen cycle helps remove that. Mechanical filtration, though, is a lot different. Mechanical filtration removes the waste before it goes through the biological process of nitrification.
Wait, the mechanical filtration helps the biological?
A few moments later.
Oh, right.
When you have organic waste in a tank, before it or any other organic matter can go through the nitrification cycle, it must first be eaten and processed into ammonia. Seahorses need more filtration. They're very different in many ways. Now, if you watch when the seahorses snick their food, watch closely, and out of the operculum, you're going to see what looks like smoke, a plume of smoke. In reality, that's organic matter being ejected back out into the water column. They estimated 8% of what a seahorse ingests through the snicking method is ejected through the operculum as waste product. Now, most of this waste, as you look at it, is very, very small, and much of it is too small for the cleanup crew. The seahorses are also different in terms of their digestive system. When they snick in food, it goes through their system and back out in as short of a period of time as 10 hours. 1/3 of the food is back into the water column, and much of it too small for the cleanup crew. That means we're going to have bacteria that are going to feed on. Protozoans are also always present in our tanks. When we have high organics, their population grows as well. Excess amounts of organics, that means increased microbial activity. Increased microbial activity gets crazy. We end up with all kinds of organisms, and then we have problems in the seahorse tank.
In the full presentation, Dan discusses the types of problems and the illnesses that result from those problems.
The logical question is, what is the answer?
Dan has kind of showed us why filtration is important and the basics on, what we need to do, and etc. We've covered why both biological and mechanical are important. We mentioned using an oversized skimmer. We mentioned the filter socks. We talked about UV, some are for and against. Is there anything else that you feel is a really important part of your filtration system that we haven't talked about?
Clamps are great for filtering the water, but I don't like them in the seahorse tank itself
Dan's talked about he prefers scrubber, but I like the macros. I just think they're pretty and I like them.
So if it comes in the house, and whether macro, snails, anything like that, they're going to be in quarantine for 6 months. From my perspective, it's just not worth taking a chance.
My absolute favorite tank right now is the one that has an algae scrubber going because I just don't have to do much.
The problem is what most people don't realize in a seahorse tank is how much of it is microscopic or very fine organic matter. And a cleanup crew will eat the big stuff, but the dissolved and non-dissolved organics that are floating around the water column are going to be open game for the bacteria and the protozoa.
If you don't have a high flow in there, the larger particles are just going to collect on the bottom of the tank.
That's a very great point because, and the reality is, we want the flow strong enough that we keep these organic stuff in the water column so that the mechanical filtration can filter them out.
Exactly.
And the higher the turnover of the flow, the more we can filter. So, in theory, what we really want is a high flow tank to remove as much of the organics as fast as possible.
My main display has become so disgusting with algae, I can't even stand to look at it. I've tried everything. My seahorses don't care. Like, they're happy.
No, they don't.
They just are
They
like,
don't.
but I can't stand to look at it. And if
First.
anybody's gone
Well,
from
the
a
Bryops-
sand bottom to a bare bottom, because I really almost want to pull my sand out.
Could the
Because
sand be
it's
affecting it,
the
guys?
Sand.
With sand, you can remove it. It's just I would be trying really hard to replace maybe with something like marine pure or AMS blocks. Sort of replace a little bit of the surface area that you're taking out by removing the sand and doing it quite slowly, because your sand is probably over half of your sort of surface area, and taking all that out in one hit can be kind of destabilizing for the tank.
When I added macros and cared for them, made sure they were the ones getting harvested, it did definitely reduce the harmful nuisance algae in the tank. When you've got a new tank, and it's so hard with seahorses because you want to make it beautiful for them, but you got to go through the algae cycle, and the more you fight it, the longer it's going to take. So you may still,
Absolutely.
in Dan's presentation, he explained, of course, if you have a new tank, that's a little different, but if you stick to the guidelines, only, a pair of seahorses pour 25 to 30 gallons, and, the guidelines that he set out, typically you'll avoid many of the issues that we're talking about. Dylan Roberts, thank you for joining us tonight, and mentioned that the only way he got rid of diatoms is improving nutrient removal, skimming better, more water changes, and careful feeding. The Salty Reef mentioned that the fish seahorse keeper is the most important part of the filtration. Proper tank maintenance is the key in his opinion. Thank you to everyone who came, and we will of course be back again next week. New topic will be announced by the weekend.
Cheers.
Nope, I was
Good
gonna
night.
say cheers everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday.